Welcome to the D.E.A.D podcast, where I discuss all things spooky and weird. I'm Desi, and today I'll be talking about the Yule Lads. Let's get started. Hey everyone, how's everyone tonight? I missed y'all. I'm sorry about missing. I was super sick. I still have some lingering junk, but for the most part, it's gone. Those kids, they got me sick, and it's not good when you're sick for a podcast. So I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about missing, but I'm glad to be back. And Merry Creepmas to everybody. And welcome to part one of Creepmas. I have several things in the works for y'all. I'm excited for y'all to listen. I have researched different legends, not just from here. Like today's, it's actually set in Iceland. So that's what we'll be talking about tonight. And so I'm excited to tell y'all about that. Oh, so I am drinking tonight. I got a new wine today because I went shopping. I said, well, I need a new wine. I'm also asking for wine for Christmas, so hopefully I get several new wines to try on the episode for y'all. The one I'm drinking tonight is called, I liked it because it looks spooky. It's called the Witching Hour, and it is a sweet red blend, but to me, it's not that sweet. I mean, I can drink it, but I thought it was going to be sweeter. And I'm drinking it out of my skeleton glass, which I will post a picture. And the shirt I am wearing tonight, I'm very excited about it because my paranormal bestie sent it to me and I love it. Paranormal Misfit podcast with Chrissy. She is awesome and she sent me this beautiful shirt. It has, because of course she knew I needed a new spooky shirts for the podcast. It is Dunkin' Donuts and Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees are chilling outside the Dunkin' Donuts drinking iced coffee. And that is just perfect. That is hilarious and I freaking love it. And so that is the shirt I am wearing for y'all tonight. And I will post a picture of that so y'all can see it. And it's super cute and super funny. So I love it. And thank you, Chrissy, for sending that to me. And so let's get started. Normally, when you think about Christmas, you think of bright lights, presents, family, and a decorated tree by a nice warm fire. But of course, where there are good things, there are always bad things. A lot of these tales are about helping Santa Claus keep the bad kids in line. Yet again, another tactic to make kids behave. So tonight I will be telling you about the tale about the Yule Lads. There are 13. Yes, 13. So buckle up to hear about all 13 of them. According to the legend, the father of the Yule Lad was a lazy ogre, while their mother was the evil ogre Gryla. It sounds like gorilla, but it's like Gryla. Gryla? Gryla? I'm not too sure, but to me it sounds like gorilla. Who collects naughty children and takes them back to her cave to make soup out of them. And to add to this scary family, there's the Christmas cat who eats any children who don't get new clothes for Christmas. And we'll talk more about the mom and the cat later on. So this tale begins in Iceland. These Icelandic versions of Santa Claus are mischievous trolls who come down from the mountains before Christmas. Throughout the majority of the year, these trolls hide in caves in the mountainous area of northern Iceland. They depart one by one for 13 days of mischief. They each have different antics, ranging from mischief to horrifying. Though they did not inherit cannibalism from their mother, the Icelandic Christmas trolls were still widely feared by children for their creepy and revolting behavior. Even though each Yule lad had their own quirks, all of them share the features of trolls. They only operate in the hours of the night. If caught in the sunlight, they could be cast into stone. So, the first of the Yule lads to leave the mountains to cause trouble across Iceland was Sheepcoat Claude. Now I'm telling you all the English versions because the Icelandic versions don't even look like words. So each of them will be the English version of their names, just so y'all know. From the 12th of December until the 26th of December, his motive was to harass the sheep of any household he comes across. Icelanders would usually keep their sheep underground in the winter months. So, when the sounds of their tormented bleating would echo up into the house, it was a sign Claude had found them. Such a sound, though common in the winter months with storms regularly scaring the flock, become more ominous, especially considering that sheep were the livelihood of every farmstead. In spite of being a fearsome troll, Claude, like many of his brothers, was limited by a deformity. His stiff legs impaired his mobility to move, so the best thing for them to do when they heard him rile up their animals was to wait it out. He would eventually move on to the neighbors in order to terrorize as many Icelandic homes as possible before sunrise. Gully Gawk was the second Icelandic Yule lad to arrive, hiding in the gullies around a house, waiting until its residents have fallen asleep. His method of troublemaking was to break into the cowshed to steal any milk available. By doing this, he robs families of the key ingredient in the sauces meant to be enjoyed over the festive season. Not to mention the traditional skyr. Although only wealthier Icelanders owned cows, most poorer people historically lived on the farmsteads of the rich, meaning all were affected by this troll's antics. The third Yule lad, Stufr, or Stubby, became a nuisance throughout Iceland at Christmas by stealing the household pans for the delicious crust that remained on them. From the 14th to the 26th of December, his appetite was insatiable. While this may not seem like a terrible crime, historically, pots and pans were incredibly valuable in Iceland. The country had no iron reserves or a mining industry of its own, and such goods had to be imported and were very expensive. For some impoverished families, they were the only possessions worth anything that they had. Spoon liquor, I tell you these names. Spoon liquor is the fourth Yule lad. This Christmas troll set out on his nationwide tour of mischief on the 15th of December each year to break into the homes of Icelanders and lick the spoons of households in the hope of a morsel to eat. Like, are these dirty spoons? Are they like in the actual dishes of the food, like the soup or whatever you're cooking, or are they like clean spoons he's just licking? Like, where are these spoons? This behavior was a result of his strange deformity. He was grotesquely thin from malnutrition. Well, that's sad. Unusual amongst trolls, who were most often depicted as overweight and muscular beasts. The lesson to be learned from Spoon Licker's behavior is less apparent than with many of the other Yule lads, although it was perhaps as simple as ensuring children cleaned their plate. Pot Scraper is like many of his brothers in that his Christmas hijinks are gluttonous. Breaking into one home after another, he seeks pots of sauce, chunks of roast meat left on the tray, saucepans of seasonal vegetables, and scores off anything left over to eat. Pot Scraper was no doubt created to encourage children to finish their meals. Leftovers may bring him sniffing at the door, as foodstuffs were meant to be preserved to last through the long winter months. Any waste was very frowned upon. This was because no one dared a fishing trip onto the tumultuous seas in this season, or wanted to slaughter an animal that could otherwise help them sustain their livelihood in the summer. So, Gullygawk is out stealing milk, Stubby is munching on the crust of pans, Pot Scraper is scoffing down leftovers, and Skinny Spoonlicker is doing exactly what his name suggests. Also on the hunt for an easy morsel was the sixth brother, Bowl Licker. Although his antics were perhaps the creepiest of all, he has a reputation for slurping the remains of whatever is left in bowls. But the way he does this is rather nightmarish. Each night, he would quite literally lay beneath a child's bed, waiting for them to finish their nighttime soup or pudding. When they are satisfied, he would readily snatch up the remaining food to guzzle down himself. Perhaps created to get children to go to sleep when asked, or not to indulge in a midnight snack, he epitomizes the trope of the monster under the bed. Number 7, Door Slammer is one of the more ominous Icelandic Yule Lads. His motive he learned from another one of the oldest of horror tropes. Until the end of the month, he would sneak from home to home to break in and bang as many doors as he could in order to wake those sleeping inside. It is possible that with the high winds of Iceland's winter and the makeshift design of many turf houses in Iceland, that many children were kept wide awake in terror over the Christmas season, fully believing that Door Slammer was making his rounds through their home. The eighth Yule Lad loves to steal. The Icelandic delicacy of skyr, the meals leading up to Christmas, are, without a doubt, some of the best of the year. One can indulge in perfectly cooked poultry, nut roast, mince pies, gingerbread men, cinnamon rolls, and all manner of other treats. This season in Iceland, however, one dish deserves an extra special mention: the delicious skyr. This healthy, tasty, traditional dairy product can be described as one of Iceland's true delicacies. Now, when I researched this, this said it was like very similar to like Greek yogurt. While a delight the whole year round, skyr is a particular treat over Christmas, serving as a refreshment from the number of huge roast meals that usually accompany the holidays. However, people were not the only ones craving skyr at this time of year. It was also the favorite meal of the eighth Icelandic Yule Lad, Skyr Gobbler. From the 18th until the 13th of December, this national delight was under careful watch should it fall into the hands of this nefarious troll. Number 9. The Sausage Snatcher is another Icelandic Yule Lad. Smoking meat is one of the favorite cooking methods in Iceland. Smoked fish and lamb are popular throughout the year, as well as smoked sausages. From the night of the 20th, however, vigilance was required when preparing the smoked sausage. It was the only piece of food that the ninth Yule Lad wanted to get his grubby hands on. He had a perfect way of stealing this Icelandic delicacy. It was said he would break into homes and hide in the rafters, waiting for dinner to be cooked before swooping from above to snatch them. Number 10. Looking out for toys over Christmas is the Icelandic Yule Lad, Window Peeper. The 10th Yule Lad to descend from over the festive season was perhaps the creepiest of all, considering the darkness of Iceland's winters, where there are only 4 hours of sunlight a day around Christmas. It takes little imagination to picture the fear children must have felt passing the windows of their homes on Christmas nights, terrified that this fearsome troll was looking in upon them. Like several of the other characters mentioned above, it seems like Window Peeper's chilling behavior was designed as a way to scare children from going outside in the dark winters. The 11th Icelandic Yule Lad is Doorway Sniffer. He may have come into folklore due to the whistling breaths of the wind creeping through Iceland's drafty turf houses. Similar to window peeper and door slammer, the idea of him creeping into a house to cause mayhem haunted the nightmares of Iceland's children. This was amplified by the fact that Doorway Sniffer was known for his enormous nose, massive even for his kind. The reason for his sniffing was also appalling. He was forever seeking out his favorite meal, another Icelandic delicacy of leaf bread. It is notable for being round, very thin, fried, and decorated with intricate patterns, usually leaves, hence the name. Those known for their detailed designs were especially upset with Doorway Sniffer, as he would often steal their leaf bread before they could impress a single guest with it. Number 12 is meat hook. Christmas culinary traditions vary significantly between families, but there is one common central feature to most festive feasts, and that's the meat. In Icelandic folklore, however, this was the target of thievery from the 12th Yule Lad, lurking whenever he had access to a kitchen, either behind doors, under tables, in cupboards, outside open windows. He would lay in wait for the meat of any dish to be slapped onto the counter. As soon as he could avoid capture, he'd pull out his long hook and snag himself the centerpiece of a family meal. Unlike his brother, who only sought smoked sausages, Meat Hook did not discriminate in his taste and would wait until the whole family fell asleep before swooping in and stealing whatever meat was hanging around. Candle Stealer is the last Icelandic Yule Lad. He emerges on Christmas Eve in Iceland. Like his 12 brothers, his name is self-explanatory, although the consequences of pranks were more troublesome than they may appear. In the past, candles were incredibly valuable in Iceland, providing light throughout the winter darkness. As noted, this lasts about 20 hours a day over Christmas. Candles were also the only available tool for Icelanders to enjoy their historically favorite pastime of reading, and over Christmas, everyone getting together to read is an old tradition. This custom makes candle stealers' antics all the more troublesome. His intent was not even to use the candles to enjoy novels and poetry. Instead, he sought only to munch on the tallow that the candles were made from. To get as much of this tallow as possible, he made sure he took it from the easiest targets in a household, the children, by following them to their bedrooms or reading nooks and robbing straight out of their hands. The candle stealer was, without a doubt, one of the most intrusive Yule lads, and one of the most upsetting to kids. All could take comfort in the fact that he was the last, and in 13 days, he, along with his brothers, mother, and her cat, would be back in the caves in North Iceland, laying dormant until the next Yuletide. Today, their image has been cleaned up a bit. Rather than being shown as trolls with extreme deformities, they are now portrayed as wearing the traditional red and white clothes, fluffy beards, and wide smiles, like Christmas gnomes, I guess. And instead of pulling pranks, they simply leave presents in the shoes that children place on their window sills, kind of like stockings on a fireplace. And in place of coal, naughty Icelandic children get a potato in their shoe in the morning. Now, on to Gryla. The Yule lads may have become more friendly over the years, but their mother, Gryla, is still a frightening troll and remains one of the longest standing Christmas traditions in Iceland. The giantess is one of the most evil figures in Icelandic folklore, and horror stories about her are still told to children over the festive season. Throughout the year, it is said that she collects whispers about children around the island misbehaving, and when winter sets in, she sets out to gather them. Her appetite for the flesh of naughty children is insatiable, and each year she finds no shortage. Collecting them up in a sack, she then cooks them in a pot and turns them into a giant stew that will sustain her until the next winter. Gryla would be terrible enough if she worked alone, but sadly for the Icelandic children, she does not. She shares her mountain cave in North Iceland with an enormous black feline called the Christmas cat, which also has an appetite for human flesh. The Christmas cat, however, does not just seek out those who have misbehaved. It happily preys on a child who did not get new clothes to wear for Christmas. This was likely created to ensure that everyone finished their weaving, knitting, and sewing by the dead of winter. Gryla was such a terrifying image to children that in the 18th century, the Parliament of Iceland outlawed the use of her legend as a scare tactic. Children were no longer threatened with being devoured. Today, statues of Gryla can be found around the country due to her integral role in Icelandic Christmas traditions. What did y'all think? Have you heard of this tale before? I think it's so funny how everything is to scare children. But let me know if you've heard of her before, if you've heard of the Yule Lads before. To me, they seem just more like mischievous. But now the mom. Is it considered cannibalism though if she's a troll, not a human? I don't know. But either way, she eats little kids. So it's not good. It makes them into stew. That's creepy. And the cat eating kids too. The giant cat. I will post pictures of the giant cat, the mom. There's some terrifying pictures. And the Yule Lads on my Instagram. So make sure y'all go check that out so you can see how scary they look. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Thanks for listening to the D.E.A.D podcast. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at the D.E.A.D podcast. Also, feel free to send in your stories, episode suggestions, or feedback at the deadpodcast1@gmail.com, or you can send me a DM on Instagram. If you enjoyed this show, please rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you are listening on, and be sure to come back next week for my next episode.